This is the conspiratorial view of history, as opposed to the accidental view. And it is the conspiratorial view that we shall present in this program.
There is a conspiracy theory that a shadowy elite of international bankers are secretly controlling the governments of the world.
They say that the people that control this world could sit around one large table and have lunch.
The theory goes that these elitists plan to create an all-powerful new world order, a world government that will destroy anyone who disobeys them. It is a theory shared by militiamen and neo-Nazis, and also by an increasing number of mainstream Americans. The message spreads through underground videos and anti-New World Order talk shows.
Is there a New World Order?
There's a New World Order.
Is there a new religion coming?
New religion's coming.
The New World Order has a certain smell about it. The smell of death.
This is the story of a family who wanted to escape from the clutches of this tyrannical elite by moving to a mountaintop in Idaho. It is also the story of how their paranoid fantasies came true.
Are you proud of yourself? Are you proud of yourself? You're gonna kill all the children to get what?
I guess I wouldn't give up what I had in my childhood for anything. Like when I was little, I would go out and I could sit and watch, a wasp dig a hole in the ground for hours. And then I'd follow it and it'd go paralyze a worm or a cricket or something and it'd drag it into its hole. But the media just portrayed that we were all crazy and had landmines everywhere and all we cared about was guns, I guess. But I mean, I do like guns, I still do. And I did then too, but I mean, it's not weird or crazy.
When Rachel Weaver was 2 years old, in the mid-1980s, her parents, Randy and Vicky, moved the family from Iowa City to a mountaintop in Idaho, a place that became known as Ruby Ridge. Randy and Vicky were conspiracy theorists. They believed that an evil elite of international bankers and media moguls was secretly controlling their increasingly tyrannical government. The move to the cabin was their way of opting out.
Am I hitting it at all, guys?
We wanted to kind of get out of the regular system and wanted to find a place where we could teach the kids at home, get them out of the city and out of the public school system. Government school is what I call them. And, kids in the city grow up with basketballs and bicycles, and kids in the mountains or out in the country grow up with dogs and guns. It isn't about hunting or target shooting. It's for protection against a government that can become tyrannical.
Describe the feeling of what it's like to shoot a gun.
I don't know. See, I really fell in love with this one gun. It's called a 45-70, but it has a really, it's not a hard kick, it's a like lugs you back. I don't know, I think that's what I enjoy most about that gun. The reason why I don't look at it as a big political thing is because even if I had, my rifles, it's not like it's going to do me any good if the government wants to wipe me out. All he has to do is fly over in a helicopter and drop a firebomb, But as far as trying to go up against the government, that's just, unless the whole country did it, I guess. But that'd be a little different.
This used to be one of my mom's favorite songs. It's that counting flowers on the wall. That don't bother me at all, that,
The Weaver family moved to the mountains because they were panicked by the underground videos they saw portraying their government as out of control and destroying the lives of simple people who wanted to live free.
When the guns are gone and your freedom lies shattered at your feet, 'tis Since when it will be far too late to save, why didn't I fight instead of sheepishly retreat?
Oh.
The family called this shadowy elite the New World Order. They thought that if they couldn't be left alone on top of a mountain in Idaho, where could they be left alone? Some of the things they believed up there might seem crazy, but they were a long way off.
Yeah, we've been on my land for a little while. This is it. Used to be an outhouse and a woodshed and stuff like right here. Our shed that they confiscated for the evidence used to be about right where that outhouse is. And this is what's left of the house. All the way up to here, I guess, was the living room, and then we had the kitchen, and about right here is where our front door was. Sink was over here on this side. And then above the kitchen was Mom and Dad's bedroom. And then over on that side, above the right-hand part of the living room was Sarah and I's bedroom, and then on the left was Sam's bedroom.
There was Rachel, her parents, her older sister Sarah, and their brother Sam. Later on, Vicky would give birth to a baby, Elishaba, up there.
We'd build tree forts and little huts and use old dead branches, and sometimes we'd make a little dugout and hide behind that and play war games. And I remember using some of the leaves off the bushes as play money and going to the store where there'd be like, it was really make-believe.
Tell me about the war games.
Just
kind of cowboy.
Yeah, just kind of cowboy Indian type things.
I believe in searching for, quote, the truth about politics, religion, whatever. I like to discuss that with people.
We always sat around and talked about stuff. I mean, that was like kind of the family, pastime, because we were always together, so we always talked about stuff.
One place the Weavers went to discuss politics was Aryan Nations, a hardcore neo-Nazi compound 70 miles from the cabin. Aryan Nations holds summer camps every year, and Randy used to visit, sometimes taking the children along. Aryan Nations are very specific about who they feel is in charge of the New World Order. Who do you believe is in charge of the New World Order?
Well, it's the Antichrist Jew. Same one that murdered Abel.
Do you think all Jews, or just some Jews?
All Jews. In other words, it's a blood order. DNA has proven it.
But even though quite a lot of the people in power aren't Jewish.
No, what you're saying is they are trying to say that they're not Jewish, but all the Rothschilds and the Bilderbergers and all the rest of them are racially Jews. We don't really care what religion they have adopted over the centuries, but as a race, they're Jews.
So
as soon as a Jew marries into a white person's, family, the offspring are Jewish. They just perform every evil on this planet. They're behind every evil thing that goes on. And they control the banking system, and that's what you're talking about, world economics, and that's by that means to control the world.
The Weaver family were never as hardcore in their beliefs as the people at Aryan Nations. Randy and Vicky were not obsessed with hating Jews. They were not white supremacists. But they liked the neo-Nazis as people, shared their hatred for the government, and enjoyed their picnic areas and summer camp activities.
What I remember is things like the candy hunts and meeting friends in the playground and sitting around a table, and if we'd meet someone new, we'd hear news stories or something, or old friends would exchange news stories, or... Oh, sorry.
The candy hunts.
I can't think what you call those. What do you call that when you find...
Treasure hunts?
Yes, treasure hunts.
I didn't feel about him ever maybe being a hardcore, I'm going to run up to the Aryan Nations and sig heil, so...
Even though they did do that once in a while?
Well, apparently. Well, I suppose you could visit. I mean, people have curiosities, but I suppose you could go to investigate and see what they were like and not be like them.
It was at Aryan Nations that the Weavers' problems began. The US government had infiltrated the compound, hoping to recruit some of the less hardcore members as undercover informants. They asked Randy to become one.
Randy said, no, I don't want to do it. You know, I moved out of the city, up on top of this mountain because you guys are all rotten. I don't want to work with you. I know what you're up to. I don't want to be a part of it. Go away. So then the government, as it is today, decided you can't say no to God, our government, so now we're going to make you serve us. So they sent a infiltrator in that was a snitch for the federal government to become friends with Randy. And you know the story about asking him to saw off 2 shotguns.
First he said machine guns. I said, I can't get to no machine guns. He says, well, how about sawed-off shotguns? They're real good. I go, oh, well, no problem. That's easy.
He grabs his file and he files it. You know, he saws the barrels off, not knowing he's violating federal law.
I totally don't understand why they even came to my dad to ask him to saw off shotguns. It makes no sense to me. It just blows my mind that they didn't even care.
But for the government, Randy had the makings of a perfect undercover informant, a slightly crazy person who was friends with far crazier people, a family man with bad finances. How could he turn them down? In fact, Randy made a big show of turning them down.
Mr. Weaver, we can get you on 6 or 7 federal firearms violations, but we'd probably forego that if you'd join our team. And I just kind of, I don't think so. And he just come clear across the seat and got right in my face. He says, well, that's the way we do it, right? He says, tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock, you'll be down Spokane Federal Building, and don't tell anybody you're coming, not even your wife. About that time, Vicki come walking out of the cabin by me. I say, hey, Vic, come here. She walked over to the truck and said, remember their names and faces. They go, we got to go. Peeled out of the gravel, throwing rocks, took off. They knew I wasn't coming down Spokane the next day.
Randy was indicted on the shotgun charge, feeling that he'd been coerced into committing a crime by a tyrannical government controlled by the New World Order. He decided not to show up in court. The family buried their heads in the sand. Randy let it be known that he would not be taken off the mountain alive. A family friend called Kevin Harris moved in with them.
I knew I was going to lose. They had me set up as a white supremacist, gun runner, blah, 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 and those people that they put on juries in North Idaho are the local brainwashed county, city fathers and mothers that will suck up and do it. If the government told them to go down Monday morning and get a walking license and pay $10 a year for it, they'd do it. From then on, I never left that property.
Pretty neat view, huh?
It was as if Randy and Vicky's conspiracy theories were coming true. They had moved to the mountains to escape a tyrannical government, and a tyrannical government was now coming to get them. The family took to carrying guns at all times, even the children. They became increasingly convinced that the army of the New World Order was watching them from the bushes. In fact, they were being watched from the bushes.
I have to remember they were under surveillance after a period of time because Randy tried to apprehend Randy previously and not been successful. But were I closeted up on the mountain with just my family and already feeling persecuted and I know someone's watching me, my paranoia is going to increase, whether I think it's going to or not.
See, most paranoid people think they're being watched and they're not.
Right.
Here was somebody who thought
they were actually being watched, so yeah, they're on a high alert. So any little thing that occurs becomes a big thing.
Can you hear that? Somebody's on their way up. Oh, see, now if we were out at the rock, I could run out and see who it is. Somebody going up higher. It's too overgrown for me to see, but they're already on their way up. And that's what we do every time we hurt somebody. Jeez. Something so simple can bring back the excitement.
Then the marshals come because he's avoiding arrest. They're not going to just walk away and say, oh, well, sure, you don't want to be arrested. We'll see you around. And you can't dispute the fact the man had a sawed-off shotgun and he tried to sell it to an undercover agent. You can call it entrapment or whatever you want, but he did it.
Due to the remoteness of his location in the mountain, it was decided that we just kind of take a wait-and-see attitude because, again, he had 3 kids up there. And the last thing we wanted to, well, the baby came along later. And maybe in retrospect waited too long. Of course, time went on and a year went on. And the last thing that the Marshal Service wanted to do was to get into a situation where kids could get involved, and then it still fell apart.
I don't have a lot of memories about me and Sam because we never really hung out together. One thing is, the day before everything happened, he had gone down to collect the seeds from his radish plants because they were really huge, just really good radishes, and he was going to plant some next year. Well, I followed him down there to talk to him and watch him or whatever, and he's all, you know, leave me alone, quit following me, whatever. And I went behind this blown over tree where the root was really big, and I was sitting there crying. And he came over and apologized to me and said he loved me and everything. And I guess that's what I remember most about him, because he had never said anything like that to me.
The marshals were up there doing the same thing they've been doing off and on for the last 3 months. They had cameras up there. Of course, Randy had found one of the cameras and had destroyed it. And they got too close to the cabin. And the dogs got a scent of them, and the dogs started chasing. The deputy started running down the hill, and then the shots were fired.
If I'd had any idea that these federal marshals were doing, they was out there dinking around, I wouldn't have gone out there myself, but I sure as hell wouldn't have let Sam and Kevin go running chasing that dog after federal marshals. I mean, that'd be stupid. That was just stupid. But so I go down this logging road, down to the area they call the Y. I hear clunk, clunk, clunk. I look, and here's this guy jumps out in front of me, total cameled out. I mean, I saw his eyes and I saw his mouth move, and he yelled, "Freeze, Weaver!" I said, "You." I was yelling for the boys. Boys, get home, boys. It's an ambush, right? I heard Sam yell, "I'm coming, Dad." Boom, 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 boom. Then it opened up.
The deputy started running down the hill. Randy, Kevin Harris, and Sammy Weaver started chasing them down. The dogs started coming down. They got to a Y. The deputy stopped, and shots got fired. The dog was definitely shot.
One of the agents shot Stryker in the back and hit his spine, and little Samuel, who raised the dog from a pup, saw him running around in circles yiping and then fall dead. Sammy opened fire on the agents that had shot his dog and said, "You guys, you killed my dog," and he opened fire and shot several times. And as it turned out, he didn't hit anybody. But then when they of course fired back at him with military rifles, these automatic fire rifles, and almost cut his left arm off. Now remember, he was about the size of a 10-year-old boy, you know, small. So they shot his left arm to where it was just hanging by the flesh, and little Samuel turned around and ran up the mountain and screamed to his dad, "I'm coming home, Dad." And at that time, my fellow officers took a MP5 machine gun and just sprayed him right up the back as he's running away and murdered him right there.
One of the U.S. Marshals, Bill Deegan, was also killed in the gunfight that followed Sammy's death.
We were all standing up on that rock that overlooks our driveway, and it was just, Mom and Sarah and I, and Dad was up there with us by now. We just let out a cry and just broke down. And I remember Dad fired Mom's .223 into the air, full clip.
So, I mean, what happened after that?
Mom, I think it was right after that, Mom said, "We gotta go get him." And so Mom and Dad went down. Kevin went with them. And I went in the house and got Elizabeth dressed. And I never saw him. They put him in the guest shed, and Dad and Mom went in and cleaned him up and wrapped him in a sheet, I guess.
It's a bad deal. You know, I didn't give a shit about nothing after that. I still don't, pretty much.
See, I don't remember days. To me, it's just all one. It's like one long bad day.
Vicky Weaver wrote in her diary that night that Sam was killed while chasing the servants of the New World Order. A US Marshal had been killed, so his team called for backup. A 400-strong army descended on the cabin. They sealed off the mountain. 2 miles away, down in the valley, the neighbours began a protest at the roadblock. Martial law was declared by the state governor, who called the Weaver cabin an extreme emergency and disaster area.
Good afternoon. A federal agent has been shot and killed in a confrontation with a fugitive in North Idaho.
We started listening to the news that night. Oh, crazy bastard, you know, white supremacists murder U.S. Marshal. Yeah, right. We murdered him. Yeah, wrong. This is a big deal now. Crazy white supremacist, and they got a dead cop. Whoa, whoa, this cop is worth more than my son? I don't think so. He ain't even worth more than my dog.
Were you aware of just how many troops turned up after that?
No, hell no.
The military operation was undertaken with such stealth that besides from hearing a few sirens down in the valley, the Weaver family had no idea that their cabin was now surrounded by FBI snipers.
I think it's one of these things that a couple agent friends of mine, when we get together for lunch, it never fails. This comes up at every lunch. And it, well, wonder if we would have done this, or well, who said that? Or, why was that done? Or,
and what about the rules of engagement?
You know, can we look back today and say those rules shouldn't have been that way? Sure, we can do that today.
And what were the rules?
The rules of engagement, there was 4 rules in there, but the main rule was that any adult armed male, it could be I can't remember the exact words, to tell you the truth.
Could and should be shot?
You know, I'd have to read it again. They were extreme. Some people would say a lot of things went wrong up there. Well, you know, I won't disagree with that. Everything that probably could have went wrong did go wrong.
The next day, the other 2 dogs that we had tied up out in the yard started kind of whimpering and barking a little bit. And I thought, yep, here they come. Somebody's out there wants to talk to us. I took Sam's Mini 14, and I walked out, and bang, I got shot through the shoulder. It was like a bloody mist went out across the front of my face. I smelled that, and it went. I cussed in my mind, you know, like this. You know, this really hurts. And then I got my bearings, and I went through my mind. They're going to murder me now. They're going to kill me now.
We're up on the hill, just about straight across from where the house was, where U-2 was apparently placed strategically.
That was the sniper.
Mm-hmm. You can see very clearly, well, at least I know where the house was, but I can see everything real clearly from here. You can see that old cook stove laying on the platform right now. If I can see that, and he had a scope, I know he could see a lot more. He first took a shot at my dad and hit him in the back, came out through his armpit. And then, as they were running into the house, he shot my mother, and it went through her head and killed her, and the bullet then entered Kevin Harris.
Where was your mother at the time?
Standing right about where that cook stove is. It'd be about exactly where she was. She was holding my little sister, who was 10 months old at the time.
So Vicky goes to the door while she's nursing little Elishaba, pushes the door open frantically because she hears the gunfire, and here comes the whole family running in the door.
The bullet had come through the window in the door, would have went through Vicky's face here and come out this, or let's see, she was facing that way. It would have come in here, out here, right over the baby's head, and into Kevin. Kevin's coming in, it went in his left arm, and the main part of the bullet broke two ribs and stopped about this far from his heart.
So that was an excellent shot, but a very sad day for America. when one of my fellow officers and soldiers has to shoot a mother holding her little baby.
I turn around, there's Vicky. She's kind of down on her knees and her head.
I think it was Dad picked Elishba up out from underneath Mom and handed her to me. And she had blood and stuff all over her head, and we were afraid that she had gotten hit too, but she was okay. It was just Mom's blood. And that's when we went around and drew the curtains on all the windows. And shut the door, obviously, and we didn't come out after that.
The family locked themselves in the cabin for over a week. Nobody but the Weavers and the FBI knew that Vicky had been killed.
How many of you against one is there, huh? We want a head count. We want to know how many are still alive up there.
I remember hearing people underneath the house rustling through our stuff. I remember the floodlights coming through the cracks of the curtains. And hearing, they're stupid, whatever they are, half tracks or whatever, rolling over stuff in the yard. They crunched our generator. They ran over our outhouse. Not to mention, down at the Y where everything happened, after they shoot the dog, and my brother, they ran over the dog. It's just sick.
Baby killers! Baby! Huh? Baby killers! You're all baby killers, you bunch of senseless bastards! All of you!
2 miles down in the valley, the protest at the roadblock had swelled to thousands. People travelled from across America to support the Weavers.
Nobody can murder a 14-year-old boy. Any adult in his right mind would never, ever agitate a 14-year-old boy into a mortal gunfight and justify it as right. There's just no way it can ever be justified as right in my book. I'm a father and I'm an American.
Jack McLam and Bo Greitz were in the crowd. Jack and Bo are both ex-military officers who've jumped ship and become heroes to the anti-government activists.
It was surreal. It was incredible. What we had was, I'd never seen so many FBI, DEA agents, U.S. Marshals, local police, state police in one place in my life. We had armored personnel carriers, and then they were all dressed in military uniforms with Kevlar. This is America. What is going on here?
Every day they would shout at us through the bullhorn or loud thing or whatever you call it. And they'd say, Vicky, tell Randy to pick up the phone. And Dad would scream out, you son of a bitches, you shot her or whatever. You know she's dead. And they'd never answer us. And I know they could hear through the walls. They were under the house. They were around the house. They were everywhere.
How much will you take? How much will you compromise? What do you do? How many dead patriots will you bury?
But there were people who were holding up signs that said "Death to Zog." What does Zog mean?
It means Zionist occupational government. And the neo-Nazis, Randy had attended their church a couple times, and he didn't like it, so he left. And so they felt they would come to his aid. And so they were there with their signs saying it was the Zionist occupational government was doing all this.
It was a week into the siege. The FBI had failed to convince the Weavers to come out, so they invited Jack and Bo up the mountain to talk with Randy and his daughters through the cabin walls.
Bo Greitz and Jack McLam walking across the bridge across Ruby Creek, heading to Randy's mountain house.
Later that night, Jack and Bo came back down the mountain to tell the protesters what they'd learnt.
I want all of you in the vigil to join your hands. I want you to get close, and I want you to get warm. I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is that we went right up to the top of the hill and established an immediate dialogue like I knew we could with Randy. Wasn't any problems at all. This communication is going to continue. I want your hands joined. That's an order. I got a reason for it. The bad news and get a grip on yourself is that Vicky was killed.
Damn.
And most unfortunate thing, apparently she was killed on Saturday. Wonderful mother has had her life taken, and she's in God's hands as we speak.
Our Father, as we approach thy throne tonight, we're thankful that some are left alive. We pray again tonight your blessing upon them that are the girls and Randy. And our Father, we ask that you be with Kevin tonight and get them through.
That we are women of Yah, and you will not let this come to pass again, because we are the virtuous women. You are his enemy, and you will never receive us in your hands again from our Savior. Never will you take another woman down. Never. And may we die fighting. We're going to war!
Proud to serve these morons. They don't care if you die. They put you out here front. You're nothing. You're nothing. Don't touch me. I'm with you.
The spinning had begun in earnest. The FBI said that Randy might have shot his own son in the back. They said that the Weavers were white supremacists, that they lived in a mountain fortress or a heavily armed compound. The media reported these allegations as fact. At one point they said you had, like, bunkers and...
Yeah, the root cellar. Yeah, they said this was a compound. That's why they could sneak up within 15 feet of us.
I came to a point in my mind that I knew we was all dead, and it's just a matter of time, and it didn't even matter. Except I was hoping that if they killed any of us, they was going to kill us all and do it quick, because I didn't want to see my kids suffer. They'd already proven that they, was willing to kill kids. They claim they're there for the. They sent a hostage rescue team. That ain't no hostage rescue team. That's an FBI terrorist team, is what it is. They're snipers. They put a name like hostage. There weren't no hostages up there. Hostages don't pack guns.
They said you had booby traps and landmines.
Oh yeah, but they said a lot. They said I was wanted for robbing banks in Montana and Washington. They made up all kinds of garbage that wasn't true. But that way, see, they can justify to the public it's okay to kill us because we're all crazy and we're bad guys, right? That's why they do it.
So why do you think some people were blaming Zog for what happened up on Ruby Ridge?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose they figured that Zog controls the federal government and that that's who would come up there and ruin their lives. Took some of our lives as the federal government. They have a lot of influence. The Zionists have a lot of influence. I mean, we give them $3 billion a year, Talking about Zionist Jews, there's like 4 different kinds of Jews. They ain't all bad.
Some conspiracy theorists say that the demonization of Randy Weaver as a white supremacist is thematic of the New World Order's tactics, that they falsely accuse anyone of anti-Semitism who gets too close to the truth. Could this be true? One thing's for sure, in terms of Randy Weaver, the white supremacy angle was clearly working.
Okay, let's talk about another civil rights issue, this Randy Weaver. He was in the Aryan Nation.
My neighborhood, if a guy put swastikas on his kids, I would be a little suspicious. I would say, come on over, we'll have some fruit.
The government is saying the order to the men in the field is shoot to kill. And they shot to kill. They killed the woman.
They killed the dog.
Killed the dog, then they killed the son, and they shot him in the back. The next one
they shot the dog in the back. Can you believe that, Gary? That is... Oh, man, that's a canine American. He's got his rights.
That was the worst thing that happened. Listen, I think if you're going to err, I would like people to err to protect me and my family, not err.
He wasn't causing any danger. This was a decorated
You know what? If you're bringing up your
no
kids in the Aryan Nation, you are causing danger because you're spawning hate in America.
So now you're going to have...
They call me white supremacist. That's big news. That kind of stuff sells newspapers, I believe. Who wants to report on the ice cream social at the Methodist Church?
that won't sell a damn thing. This is going to sell because this is exciting stuff. People go to car races to see wrecks. They don't go to watch people run in circles. They love blood and guts. People are cruel. On the whole, I don't trust people. I think it's been enough years now I can joke about it, you know, and keep going. I couldn't for a while. I can watch a Western now. Again, you know, it's, you know, they have that the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, they call it. I know we've all had it, each of us to a different degree. Even Elishaba talked about that until she was 2.5 years old. Blood, Mama, and she started crying. Mama, fall down, Mama needs help. I mean, she just make everybody in the room cry, you know. I haven't been watching the signs. Is anybody else? We might be going to Florida.
The siege at Ruby Ridge lasted for 10 days. Every morning, Bo and Jack would return up the mountain to talk to the family through the cabin walls.
We're trying to calm them down, get them to stop crying, and to focus on something else other than their mother laying up underneath the kitchen table in a pool of blood. And so basically we spent the morning talking to them about the need to come out and take it to court. We knew then they had one fantastic case in court against this government. Oh my goodness. There's something in law enforcement called jury appeal. And when you machine gun a little boy running away from you and shoot a mother holding a baby in the head, you got jury appeal.
It was 11 days into the siege that Bo and Jack finally convinced the family to take their case to court.
Well, the door opens and they come out. Ah, I tell you, boy, I just about get tears in my eyes now thinking about it. It was wonderful to see these little girls take off their weapons, and little tiny little girls, you know, wearing weapons against their own government. I mean, where should that be proper? And it was the saddest days of my life was spent on the top of that mountain when I realized that my fellow police officers and soldiers are capable of that, you see, that I served with. I never would have believed that, never would have believed it, you know. And so it was a great awakening for Bo and me and many of the officers up there, because when we walked down through that crowd, big guys with their military rifles and the tears coming down, streaking the face paint, you know, they were all crying, you know, that the family had come out. So it was a great experience. And that's why there's so many people today in America and people in uniform that are speaking out against this damnable world system that's being set up that will do that to people at will.
That's me and President George Bush. Some of the fringe benefits that you get being in these positions. I've had the opportunity to meet many stars, and that's me and Dolly Parton. There's me and President Ronald Reagan. Down here is a picture of Randy Weaver when we brought him off the jet shortly after we had taken custody of him. You know, in law enforcement, you know, you always think that individual that you arrested was guilty. The jury chose another avenue, and I don't have to agree with that, but in this country I have to respect it.
In the end, Randy was charged with murder, conspiracy and assault, but the trial was a disaster for the government. The judge said that the government had shown a callous disregard for the Weavers' rights. The government paid Rachel and her sisters $1 million each in compensation. Nowadays, Randy earns a living by making personal appearances at gun shows with his new wife, Linda.
Okay, this is the real Randy Weaver. What's happening, buddy?
2 miles from the cabin is the Deep Creek Inn, where the family used to go for nights out. Rachel and I went there for supper. We were unaware that the resident guitarist had waited years to meet Rachel.
My name is Dallas Pike, and I'm a storyteller. I've been living in Nashville for the last few years. I moved up here about a year ago.
What happened to your family is the reason I came to Idaho. I have a feeling you may appreciate this song.
Blood stains in the snow, Bloody Ridge, Idaho. Red stains in the snow, Bloody Ridge, Idaho. 1,000 meters is a long, long way. Never miss their bullets, never stray. Where's the justice and how do you appeal? There's no talking over, there are no deals. When some buffalo hunter snaps a cap.
How are you doing, sir?
How are you?
What's your name?
Bruce.
Bruce, glad to meet you. This is my wife, Linda. Bruce. Yes, sir. What's your name?
E-S-S-E-N. Okay,
Thank you, Harmon.
I got it. Glad to meet you.
That's my pleasure, believe me.
Red stains in the snow, Vicky Weaver in Waco. But America died in a coup d'etat. It's back in Dallas that our freedom fell when some buffalo hunters and the FBI pulled it all for our eyes.
Okay, yeah, here, do it like it. There.
Closer.
This is cute.
And look right into the lens so your eyes flash.
All right, I'll sign this here pretty quick.
Red stains in the snow, too many names for us to know.
What happened up there happened to a lot of people. It wasn't just you. And I can't tell you what an honor it is for me to meet you and to be able to play my song for you. I have touched a lot of people with this song. And I am truly sorry about what happened to your family.
I don't know what to say to people when they do that.
This is the very last copy I have of this. And I'd like you to have it. I know that this is a very painful thing for you, and if there was anything I could do, I would. I'm sorry I can't do more, man. I really am.
I don't know, I meet people like that every now and then, and it's, you know, mind if it kind of dissipated a little. I'm okay until I start hearing things like when he says Bloody Ridge, Idaho. It just reminds me of like seeing blood on the floor, and it makes me start thinking about it, and
Vicky Weaver was butchered like a buffalo, standing in the doorway of her own home, holding her baby and crying out to God to protect the rest of her family from the mad dogs that had already shot her son in the back from an ambush. With one bullet, Lon the Hitman Horiuchi brought Vietnam to America. As Vicky Weaver started talking about the One World Order, and they just gunned her down because they could.
So where are we going today?
Where are we going? Waco, I think.
And what are we going to do when we get there?
Well, we're going to talk to folks.
Must be almost there, right?
I'll bet we are. We'll probably recognize a new church building.
Randy has never before visited the ruins of the Branch Davidian Church at Mount Carmel in Waco, but for hundreds of thousands of Americans, maybe even millions of Americans, the Weaver Siege and the burning of David Koresh's church are forever linked, proof of a government gone crazy, a new world order coming to kill anyone who does not bow down to them.
All the memorial trees. See the little placards, little headstones? Little one Jones, age 1.5. Unbelievable. tell you what, boys, I wouldn't put that one on my place. I have no regrets about them. They was looking for trouble and they found it.
Well, look at these boys. Are they growing up or what? How you doing, buddy? He's about bigger than your dad. How you doing, man?
Oh, he ain't been shot at lately. Things are looking up.
For 6 months, local volunteers have been spending their weekends rebuilding the church. It is nearly finished. Some conspiracy theorists say that the timing of the siege at Waco was no coincidence. They say it was a deliberate PR stunt designed to deflect the bad publicity they were getting for the shootings of Vicky and Sammy Weaver.
She was standing right here, right in the window, holding it open, holding the baby, saying, "Get in the house, get in the house."
And she was shot here?
Yes.
Perhaps it was no coincidence. It was 6 days into Randy Weaver's trial that the BATF announced that they were taking military action against a violent, child-abusing, gun-hoarding religious cult holed up in a compound in Texas. But if it was a PR stunt, it backfired. 53 adults, including David Koresh, and 23 children were burnt to death here.
They're the same people, the FBI, they're pretty bloodthirsty. Lon Horiuchi, the shooter, FBI sniper, was right over there in that house.
Well, was Lon Horiuchi here?
Yes, Lon Horiuchi was here. Yeah, I mean, these stories are all interconnected. Yeah, those are sniper houses right over there. You didn't know Horiuchi was here, huh?
Nope.
Interesting.
The FBI say they didn't know Vicky Weaver was behind the door when they fired into the cabin. They say her death was an accident and not the actions of a bloodthirsty government controlled by a shadowy elite called the New World Order.
You are a federal officer, so Randy and Vicky Weaver would certainly have thought of you as being an agent of the New World Order, an agent of Zog. I mean, what's that?
Well, I haven't lost any sleep over it, I'll tell you that. I mean, the United States is a great place to live. The freedoms that we have here and, you know, owning firearms and all of that, there's some certain set of rules, and people can do all that. But then you have some other people that think they can go not just one step, but 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps over and pound the drums, and then you get a lot of followers.
Ooh, what a mess.
What can you see?
Like old material that Mom used to save. And some shoes, Lishba's baby chair, broken pottery. My mom used to save all kinds of material and stuff for making blankets and clothes. And
Rachel visits the remains of her cabin about twice a year. When she comes, she sometimes finds evidence of other visitors, pilgrims, who've been rummaging around their old belongings like archaeologists.
Somebody's been up here on horses.
One of the pilgrims was Timothy McVeigh, who visited Randy Weaver's cabin alone some months before blowing up the Alfred P. Murrah building in Oklahoma City and killing 168 people. Timothy McVeigh considered the Murrah building to be local New World Order headquarters. The Weavers moved to the mountains because of their fantasies about a shadowy elite coming to get them, and in a sense their conspiracy theories came true. The American militia movement was formed that week at the roadblock at Ruby Creek, convinced that a shadowy elite plans to do to the world what they did to the Weavers. This is the conspiracy theory I will examine throughout this series.
Are you filming the crap? It's a mess. I'd love to tear this down and burn it. You guys ready to head back? Or? Oh, I don't want to be late for dinner.
Yep.
And watching Captain Kangaroo. Now don't tell me I've nothing to do.
They shot the dog. They shot the dog.
A federal agent has been shot and killed in a confrontation with a fugitive in North Idaho.
You know, the word racist itself is a good word. It means proud of your race.
We need this for one man, his wife, and his kids in a cabin?
Come on, get a grip, people!
Weaver wanted to die.
I just wanted to kick the door down so I could take a couple with me.
You want to know how many are still alive up there?
Vicky is dead.
Somebody got away with murder.
And there was blood all over the floor.
There were going to be no heroes at Ruby Ridge.
In 1971, Randy Weaver and Vicki Jordison are married in Fort Dodge, Iowa. All indications point them towards a standard Midwestern lifestyle, but the Weavers want something different.
Well, back in 1980, I guess it was, we started thinking about moving. Sarah was going to go to school, public school back in Iowa, and at the time we weren't real thrilled about that.
At that time in Iowa, parents were barred from homeschooling their children. Angered by what they view as a corrupt government, and with their religious views growing more outside the mainstream, the Weavers decide to live a life of isolation in the mountains.
We thought it'd be nice to move to the mountains and raise a family, try to raise one out in the mountains, and teach kids at home, and we were just going to do it. Prepared for about a year, got our bills paid off, sold the house, got all our ducks in a row, you might say.
In August of 1983, the Weaver family leaves Iowa and the rest of society behind and heads west.
We weren't sure exactly where we were going to go, but we figured in the Rocky Mountains somewhere.
The Weavers finally settled in northern Idaho. The small logging village of Naples has always been fertile ground for people living outside the mainstream. First, as a destination for back-to-the-earth hippies. Then in the 80s, the Weavers are part of a wave of right-wing survivalists.
People up here care about each other and are tolerant of each other. I think they enjoy each other's differences.
The Weavers pay just $5,000 for a rocky hilltop plot of land where they build this plywood cabin primarily out of scraps from lumber yards. And like many families in Naples, they raise animals and grow their own food. It was an idyllic life for the Weavers' children, Sarah, Sam, and the youngest, Rachel.
This used to be a garden. I didn't realize how good I had it then, but I do now. I hope my kids get to experience it. You know, it doesn't sound as fun as it really was, but I guess you'd have to grow up that way.
As time passes, the Weavers' views move even further to the right. Their mistrust of the government increases, and the family's religious beliefs become steeped in thoughts of Armageddon and racism.
You know, the word racist itself is a good word. It means proud of your race.
He got told a few times that the people just didn't want to hear his political views.
He did come in and express his views about blacks and Jews and anybody that was not of the white race. You know, kind of gave me an idea that he was a little bit out of the mainstream.
Get the heck out of here! I didn't come all the way down here to...
But the Weavers are far from alone in their beliefs. Elsewhere in the Pacific Northwest, the white movement has become militant. A right-wing terrorist group calling itself The Order has gone on a campaign of violence, bombing banks, hijacking armored trucks, and even murdering a Jewish talk show host, all in the name of a new white homeland. After The Order is finally brought down, law enforcement quickly turns its attention to the Aryan Nations, the neo-Nazi political group where The Order had its genesis.
So we were very aggressive in our investigative efforts against these individuals and did everything we could to infiltrate the organization with sources of information.
The FBI, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, as well as state and local law enforcement, were all converging on the Aryan Nations. And in the wake of the recent terrorism in the Northwest, Aryan Nations headquarters, located just 70 miles from the Weaver cabin, is inundated with paid federal informants.
One race, one vote, one nation, one people, one homeland. We're going to have it.
Each summer, the Aryan Nations holds a weekend retreat for its members and possible recruits. It's 3 days of speakers, events, and Nazi pep rallies.
They call it a World Congress. It's a gathering of white separatists, some of them supremacists, people with that philosophy, basically.
And it's at one of these congresses in 1986 where a federal informant posing as a gun-running biker and using the name Gus Magisano begins a 4-year relationship with an unassuming attendee, Randy Weaver.
I didn't have any idea the scrutiny that they were under by the federal government this Aryan Nations place.
Over the next few years, Magisano slowly builds Randy's trust and offers him $700 for 2 sawed-off shotguns. In October of 1989, after sawing off the barrels himself, Randy Weaver sells the guns to Magisano. But soon after, Randy abruptly ends the relationship after learning that Magisano is actually a snitch. The ATF is now without an informant. So, with his connections to the white movement, a clean military background, and an arrestable offense to use as leverage, the ATF looks to replace Magisano with Randy Weaver.
Then I was approached by his bosses and said that they would bring federal firearms charges against me unless I joined their team, basically. And I said, well, I was not going to join their team and become an informant, and therefore they just carried it on from there, and it got blown out of proportion after that. If I had to join their team and become a snitch and start working for them, none of this would have happened. Vicki and I was going out. We had a snowmobile down to the county road, and right there on the glass bridge, there's an old Chevy pickup with a cab-over camper on it.
Posing as tourists with an overheated truck, ATF agents wait for Randy and Vicki to come and help.
As soon as I had my hands on top of the radiator and my foot up on the bumper, this guy reaches around and grabs me right here and says, "Freeze, federal agents!"
1 full year after selling the illegal guns, Randy is finally arrested. During his arraignment, he is allowed to sign over his property as bond. But the part-time federal magistrate mistakenly tells him that if found guilty, his property will be taken away. And with their paranoid fears now seemingly proving true, the Weavers decide that rather than facing their destiny in court, their only option is to stay on the mountain.
It wasn't just Dad. It was our whole family. And we didn't want him to go down because we figured they'd put him in jail for, sawing off shotguns, and we'd rather, stay on the mountain and live with our family, happily than have it be torn apart. But I guess that backfired.
Then we heard on the radio that the white supremacist Randy Weaver, blah, 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 didn't show up for court, but the U.S. Marshals will get their man.
Once Randy fails to appear in court, he officially becomes a federal fugitive, and his case is turned over to the U.S. Marshals Service. But unlike most cases, the Marshals know exactly where Randy is. In fact, the Weavers refuse to leave their hill, even for food. And it's during this time that they gain the support of a small group of local sympathizers.
The first day I went up there, I needed to know, did he or did he not saw the shotgun off? And he told me he didn't.
Randy and Vicki turn their holdout from the law into a moral stand. They believe they are victims of religious and political persecution at the hands of an unjust government.
I felt that Randy was being picked on because of his religious and his political views. And if it happened to Randy, it could have happened to me.
Vicki begins a letter-writing campaign, making clear their beliefs to friends, family, and even law enforcement.
She wrote one to the prosecutor, maybe, and she called them servants of the Queen of Babylon, which they are. They still are, the whole bunch of them. They're all servants of Babylon. She just made them all mad as hornets. I was proud of her. Still am.
But the letters do little to help Randy's cause, and in April of 1991, the Marshals Service sends the case file, including Vicki's letters, to a psychologist. They are sent back a psychological profile, mistakenly referring to the Weavers as the Randalls, that paints an extreme picture of a paranoid family led by a fierce matriarch. who are all ready and willing to fight to the death. As the months pass, the Weavers remain holed up on their remote mountaintop, and the marshals, hesitant to approach the cabin for fear of a possible confrontation, continue sending messages through friends. In October of '91, in a small guest shed on the Weaver property, Vicky gives birth to their fourth child, a baby girl named Elishaba. With winter approaching, the family prepares for the long months ahead, and with plenty of more pressing cases, the marshals leave the Weavers alone on their hilltop. But on March 8, 1992, a full year since Randy's stand had begun, a nearby newspaper from Spokane, Washington, publishes a front-page article about a local fugitive snubbing his nose at the federal government. Within days, the story catches the eye of the national media. Randy Weaver, and the tough talk coming from his remote mountain, quickly becomes a thorn in the side of the Marshal Service.
You put up a bluff. You ever played poker?
Back in Washington, the U.S. Marshal Service is raising the stakes. 3 weeks after the first story is printed, a special meeting is held at Marshals headquarters. Based on neighbors' warnings, the now numerous news reports, and the growing mythology surrounding the Weavers, this remote cabin in the Idaho woods becomes the center of a complex surveillance and apprehension plan dubbed Operation Northern Exposure. During the next 5 months, the Marshal Service records over 100 hours of surveillance footage from solar-powered cameras strategically planted around the Weaver property.
It's a total invasion of privacy, you know? It's like if my brother would have found out some of the stuff I did, you know, I'd be embarrassed enough, let alone the government.
The surveillance clearly shows that the Weavers are almost always armed and seem to be prepared for some kind of confrontation. The cameras also show the family now joined by Kevin Harris, a 23-year-old man from Spokane who had lived with the Weavers as a teenager and looks up to Randy as a father figure. As surveillance escalates, so does media coverage. The national press seems drawn to the Weaver story. Randy is billed as a local folk hero, and his plywood cabin is transformed into a mountaintop fortress.
It became blatantly obvious they were being watched, but yet they kept waiting for someone to come to their door.
In the early morning hours of August 21st, 1992, a team of 6 deputy U.S. Marshals, fully armed and outfitted with night vision goggles, hike up the Weavers Hill to gather intelligence for the final phase of Operation Northern Exposure. After 8 hours of surveying the terrain and watching the Weavers, their day is done and they begin to sneak back down the mountain. But for some reason, things don't proceed as planned. And in the hurried confusion, tragedy is about to strike.
Our yellow lab striker was so worked up and excited that I figured it had to be probably a mountain lion or bear. And Kevin and Sam come down around behind and followed me. And I said, well, I'm going to go down the logging road and I'll meet you down at the Y. And they just following the dog through the woods. Actually, I didn't know which way the dog was going to go for sure, but I wasn't going to go tramping off through the woods chasing the dog. Getting old and lazy, you know.
14-year-old Sam Weaver and Kevin Harris, 23, both armed and anticipating a wild animal, split off from Randy and chased the dog through the woods.
And I got about maybe right to here, and some guy jumped from the right side of the Y there down, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 foot right down in the center. I could tell he had a weapon, and he was fully camoed out. All I could see basically was his eyes, and I saw his mouth move. He yelled at me, he said, "Freeze, Weaver." I said, "Screw you," and turned and started running back up the hill. And I was yelling all the time. I said, get home, boys, it's an ambush."
The boys don't hear Randy, and they continue chasing the dog through the woods until they come upon the Marshals. Sam Weaver's dog, Striker, reaches the Marshals first.
And I heard a bang. Arr, arr, arr. They shot the dog, they shot the dog.
In the next few seconds, a flurry of panicked gunfire breaks out between the Marshals and the boys. And amidst the chaos, a deputy U.S. Marshal is shot and killed.
I said, get home, and Sam yells, "I'm coming, Dad," and then there was a bunch more shooting, and I took my shotgun, aimed it up in the air, and pulled the trigger, and straight up in the air, I didn't know what to do. It was after that, or like everything was over with.
With an officer down in unfamiliar territory, two of the deputies that were not in the gunfight run for nearly an hour through the woods and down the hill to the nearest neighbor, where they make a frantic call to 911.
I got an officer dead. I got 3 pinned down. I need help quick. We had an incident with Randy Weaver. I want the state police. I want all the help that I can get. I've got to go back in for more officers that are trapped.
But the officers are not trapped. In fact, the marshals are completely unaware that the Weavers have also suffered a loss.
I got home pretty shortly, and then a little shortly after that, Kevin come walking home, and we said, "Where's Sam?" And he said, "Sam's dead."
Samuel Weaver, Randy and Vicky's 14-year-old son, was killed in the firefight, shot once in the arm and once through the back.
When Kevin said Sam's dead, well, we just lost it. You know, we were up there and we were just, I mean, I was cussing and screaming and crying in a combination. Nobody yelled at us, nobody shot at us. I figured these guys had split the scene.
Randy, Vicky, and Kevin bring Sam back up the old logging road to their cabin, where they clean his wounds and place his body in the same shed where his baby sister, Elishaba, was born just 10 months before.
The last thing I remember about my brother was he had gone down to the garden. He had his own special radish patch, and I started to follow him down there, and he's all, "Go away, leave me alone, I want to be alone." And so there was an uprooted stump over here, and I went behind it and I started crying, and he came over and he apologized to me. And that was like, that was the first time he'd ever apologized to me for making me leave and making me cry, you know. And it was just, you know, it's a great thing to remember, I guess. That the last moment that you remember your brothers like that.
Meanwhile, caught off guard and ill-prepared to handle a federal situation, local law enforcement evacuates the neighbors and closes off the entire mountain.
Because I didn't know what was going to happen. I had no idea this was something that I had not been schooled in or prepared for in any way, shape, or form.
The news of federal officers pinned down by gunfire deep in the Idaho woods was quickly reaching Washington. And the one thing the Marshal Service was trying so hard to avoid, an armed conflict with children, was now right in front of them.
I got 3 pinned down. I need help quick.
Good afternoon. A federal agent has been shot and killed in a confrontation with a fugitive in North Idaho. Weaver, a fugitive on a federal firearms.
Whenever a federal officer is killed, government policy dictates that the matter be turned over immediately to the FBI. But on August 21st, 1992, the FBI had never heard of Ruby Ridge or Randy Weaver. All they knew was what they were hearing from the panicking marshals.
Got a call from FBI headquarters, and he advised there'd been a shooting up at Ruby Ridge and that a marshal had been killed. The marshals were pinned down. We basically had 2 functions going up there. One was the rescue of the marshals, and the other one was the arrest of Randy Weaver.
The situation, as presented, leads to the decision to call in the FBI's secret weapon, the Hostage Rescue Team, or HRT, perhaps the most elite squad of snipers and assaulters in the world. And on the way out to Idaho, somewhere over the Great Plains, Dick Rogers, the head of the HRT, in consultation with FBI Assistant Director Larry Potts, agreed that the possibility of entering an ongoing gunfight, combined with the intelligence they were receiving on the Weaver family, warranted extreme measures. They begin to draft special rules of engagement to give the snipers more freedom than the standard FBI shooting policy, an action unprecedented in FBI history. But the threat of a firefight has long since subsided, and the marshals are finally taken safely down the hill with the help of the Idaho State Police.
I had a bad feeling about this situation before I even left home. But, you know, I'd been in 300-plus situations, and, you know, I remember now saying to my wife, well, I don't feel good about this one. And turned out to be an accurate vibe.
On Saturday morning, almost 24 hours after the initial firefight, as law enforcement from all over the region mobilized to the remote hilltop. A briefing is held with FBI negotiators, the HRT's tactical team, and on-scene commander, Gene Glenn.
Gene Glenn is in charge, and in theory, the way the FBI manages is the negotiation team leader makes his recommendations, and the tactical team leader makes his recommendations, and the on-scene commander makes his decision from there.
But with the mere presence of Dick Rogers and the HRT, the question as to the seriousness of the situation seems to have already been answered.
Kind of almost reverse psychology, you know. If they're here, it must be bad. Whereas if we send out a county team of 5 guys and a couple of negotiators, you know, this is nothing, a barricaded subject. But if these guys are on scene, whoa, you know, this is something bad's about to happen here.
Perhaps the most intimidating show of power is the FBI's use of the tank-like armored personnel carrier, or APC, the appearance of which begins to have a startling effect on the locals, typical Western individualists who don't take kindly to intimidation.
Come on! Come on! Whatever it is, both sides are wrong. This is getting crazy. This is absolutely... Come on, get a grip, people!
How many of you against one is there, huh? We want a head count. We want to know how many are still alive up there.
As the day progresses, the FBI sets up a field headquarters in a small meadow just at the foot of the Weaver's Hill. And even though the marshals at this point are quite safe, and there has been no shooting at all for at least 24 hours, the buildup continues, and the rules of engagement somehow remain as part of the operations plan.
In my 27 years as an agent, I've been involved in an awful lot of arrests, an awful lot of raids, and this is the first time we'd used rules of engagement.
Dick Rogers said that any adult male with a weapon was a target.
The FBI's standard deadly force policy allows agents to shoot only as a defensive measure, but the final rules of engagement that are faxed to Washington include the statement, if any adult male is observed with a weapon, deadly force can and should be employed. The guns which the Weavers thought would protect them were now the very things that made them targets. Washington approves the plan, and snipers are immediately dispatched to the hill to create a perimeter around the Weaver cabin.
See how quiet it is right now? Just the way it was.
As the snipers settle into position, the FBI prepares to approach the cabin, and the Weavers wait.
The other 2 dogs started barking a little bit and whimpering, and we was all in the house at the time, and I told everybody, I said, well, there's probably somebody out there approaching and they want to talk to us. So I said, I'm going to go out and see if they want what they got to say.
Randy, his 16-year-old daughter Sarah, and Kevin Harris leave the cabin to see if anyone is there.
Well, nobody wants to talk. It's apparent they don't want to talk to us, so I come walking from the outcropping over there.
When no one responds, Randy goes to check the guest shed where Sam's body has been laying since the morning before.
Come around the shed and I switched the rifle to my left hand, and there was a latch up about this high on the door that you had to turn to open the door. I was going to go in and see Sam again, and just as I grabbed that latch, somebody shot me through this shoulder.
After hearing the gunshot, Vicki Weaver comes to the front of the house and calls for Randy and the kids to get inside.
Sarah started pushing me, get in the house, and she was pushing me. Kevin come down off the rock outcropping and joined in behind us. And 1, 2, 3, we was all going like this to the house.
As the 3 run for the cabin, the sniper holds his fire until they approach the door.
Vicki was holding the door, standing right here holding the door. The door would have been right here. She's holding it like this with Elishaba. The bullet went through Vicki's head and killed her, and that same bullet went into Kevin's left arm and tore it up real bad, and then it split up. And the main bullet kept going in and lodged about that far from his heart.
I didn't know where Mom was hit, but I knew something was wrong because she was down, and I just started, like, saying Mom. and crying.
As you can imagine, that was a very chilling moment when shots were fired. And the sniper observer team wasn't sure what they hit.
After 18 months of refusing to come down, any second chances Randy may have had are now gone. The confrontation the Weavers had predicted has come true. A U.S. Marshal has been killed. Sam's body is still in the shed. Randy and Kevin are both wounded, and Vicky now lay dead in the kitchen. When I turned around and saw him laying there, I knew from then on we were dead meat. They were just murdering us now. And you have to be there to understand the feeling. It was like I didn't even care anymore. I just wanted to kick the door down so I could take a couple with me.
The first person to actually speak out to Randall Weaver was the head of the hostage rescue team, Dick Rogers.
He gave a surrender demand?
Yeah, he had an ultimatum, come on out or else. We're going to start crushing your buildings and push your house down the cliff. And
we got no response from the captain at all.
Words are like bullets, if they come out of your mouths, you can't call them back. Makes an ultimatum like that, you can't call it back.
Meanwhile, 3 miles from the cabin, where law enforcement has closed the road, locals have started to gather in protest to what they see as an outlandish show of force on the part of the federal government.
We need some warm bodies. You into it?
Yeah, they were real concerned. What's going on in my neighborhood? Why have all these armed men suddenly descended into my community? It's a shock.
Yeah, you're all bad with all your guns. All your kids.
But the people at the roadblock, as well as law enforcement, are still unaware of the tragedy that has just transpired on the ridge above.
Randy Weaver has told friends all he wants is to be left alone. But with the sudden appearance of military hardware like this, his one-man stand against the law is suddenly taking on the appearance of a full-blown war.
We need this for one man, his wife, and his kids in a cabin?
On day 3 of the standoff, with more troops still arriving, earth-moving equipment is brought in to widen the roads and build a new bridge, allowing larger trucks and even more equipment up the mountain.
The command post area was taking on kind of a little community appearance. It was growing very rapidly, and it seemed like new people were showing up all the time. It was a busy little place.
Some people were getting ready to go to work, some people were just getting off of work, other people were playing horseshoes or jogging or taking a shower. Only thing we didn't have was a movie theater.
Don Kasoulis was part of an FBI SWAT team from Denver, Colorado. They were one of the few units at Ruby Ridge that spoke out against the special rules of engagement.
I remember I just said, that's ridiculous, or that's crazy, and we kind of talked about it, and we decided we weren't going to go by those rules.
Don't you think we ought to consider when we can shoot and when we can't? Shouldn't that be, like, foremost in our minds? Apparently wasn't.
The FBI uses a remote-controlled robot to place a phone near the Weaver's door. Speaking through the phone, the negotiations team attempts to establish a dialogue. And even though their initial attempts fail, to the negotiators, the situation is simple.
As far as I'm concerned, it's an easy barricade sitting on top of a mountain. Why don't we just sit here and wait?
Everything ran into one day for me. I don't remember night from day, and I just remember I took care of Elishba most of the time. I remember going into the pantry to get food, and there was blood all over the floor.
The next big thing we heard was like tracked vehicle coming in the yard.
And we heard a lot of scrunching and crashing, and while they were running over the woodshed, and I told the kids that, you know, they're going to push the house over. That's what I thought they were going to do.
The FBI uses the APC to clear out the area and gain control of the property, but it comes to a stop just before the guest shed.
For some reason, one of the HRT guys just jumped out of the APC out the back and opened up this door. And that's when they discovered Sam's body.
Sam's body had been lying in the shed for 2 days. At that point, the possibility that any of the Weavers might have been hurt had not even been considered.
We had no information that he'd even been shot at. So these are all things that happen, and you can have all the control of things. You can control property, high ground, and everything. But people's minds. And we didn't know what they were thinking because we couldn't understand their losses. And that changed everything.
The discovery of Sam's death sends a shockwave through law enforcement. And with tension running high down at the roadblock, the FBI decides to wait until daylight to break the news.
Federal officials have just announced Randy Weaver's 13-year-old son died during the initial shootout Friday. Protesters and neighbors are apparently not taking the news well.
Are you proud of yourself? Are you proud of yourself? You're going to kill all the children to get one man.
When they discovered Sam's body, it kind of ratcheted up that feeling of being in some kind of out-of-control tragedy.
On Tuesday, day 5 of the standoff, the FBI finally investigates the crime scene. They quickly learn that what the marshals had been reporting may have been greatly exaggerated.
You know, if you're pinned down for 12 hours, there's going to be several hundred rounds that have been fired, maybe several thousand rounds to pin down that many people. And we didn't find the shell casings. We didn't find the rounds. Found a few.
The special rules of engagement, which are still officially in place, are finally called off. On Wednesday, August 26th, on the other side of the country, in Quincy, Massachusetts, services are held for U.S. Deputy Marshal William Deegan, who was killed in the same shootout that killed Sam. Back in Idaho, the roadblock protest has turned into an around-the-clock vigil. As word spreads, the tone of the roadblock changes. The locals are joined by neo-Nazis and skinheads who have come from all over the country to show their support for the Weavers and their beliefs.
We had heard on the local news that there were people gathering at the roadblock, which felt good. If they started shooting us up and everything, well, the people down at the roadblock would have known something was wrong.
That afternoon, Randy and Kevin dictate a note to Sarah, detailing exactly what they remember, in case they don't make it off the mountain.
Is there any agent here that represents Gene Glenn from the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
The standoff in Naples, Idaho has taken an unusual turn.
Bo Greitz, a retired Army colonel renowned for his work on behalf of U.S. soldiers missing in action, performed what he calls a citizen's arrest on 4 top officials.
We, as citizens of the United States, do hereby present this citizen's arrest warrant.
And the whole idea was I wasn't going to arrest the governor of Idaho. I wanted action. I wanted somebody to listen to me. I wanted somebody to let me through so I could go up to the top of the ridge, not be dressed in Kevlar, carrying a submachine gun, so that maybe Weaver would talk to me.
Consider yourself served.
Then one day they said that Colonel Bo Greitz had showed up at the roadblock down below, and the next time they hollered at me, I hollered back and I told them, I said, I'll talk to Bo Greitz.
The FBI lets Bo Greitz, a Green Beret commander and right-wing icon, pass the roadblock to talk to Randy, even though they know he's a risk.
Especially knowing his political stance and his connections to some of these right-wingers. Sure, it was riskier.
And, you know, this was no good. I couldn't talk to Weaver, so I jumped off the tank, and I came right over here. I said, "Weaver, this is Bo Greitz." And I saw his face just flash right there in the window of the bathroom.
Bo accomplished more during that first evening than all the negotiation had from the beginning to that point. And so that was a positive thing. The negative of Bo's dialogue was we found out a lot of things that were kind of shocking.
And then is when he told me about Vicky, and I was shocked.
I've never been shocked by any single event in my 21 years as I was by that one sentence uttered by Randall Weaver. Vicky's been killed, I've been shot, and Kevin's been shot.
Randy's in good health. Unfortunately, Vicky is dead.
Karen, the news earlier tonight, just a few moments ago, that Vicky Weaver, the wife of Randall Weaver, has been shot and killed. She was shot and killed last Saturday and has been dead for 6 days. It's a very volatile situation, although it appears to be quiet at this moment.
Yes, this will be a tense night on the roadblock.
It never entered our mind that she was anything but an active person in the cabin up there. So that was a tough night.
Never will you take another woman down. Never. May we die. We're going to war.
A lot of anger. Just hoping for daylight and hoping for something better.
This morning began very hopeful after last night's very tragic news that Vicky Weaver had been killed. In fact, there was word buzzing through all quarters that this might indeed be the big day.
On day 9 of the standoff, Bo Greitz returns at dawn to keep the dialogue going, and Randy Weaver makes sure that Bo understands what actually happened.
The door's open like this. Yep. She comes out and says, "What happened?" I said, "I'm here." She goes, "Those sons of bitches." She turns around and here's the door. They knew she was there. My daughter and her and the baby was right there.
As the Weavers tell Bo their story, they learn that one of their biggest fears was true.
That thing's got a shotgun on it. No, I don't want it.
Yeah, I saw it off shotgun, boy, right there. You
see it.
Grab that telephone. Boom!
The robot was sitting right in front, right up against and right in front of the door. The robot had a claw, and it had a 12-gauge shotgun that was pointed right in the door.
That's right. The robot did have a weapon. I forget what it was, a shotgun or something. But once again, as far as I know, that was an oversight.
The first real human being in all this heartbreak and trauma and tragedy to come in there to Randy was Jackie.
The next thing I knew, Bo was approaching me about going up, and it just happened before I knew it.
The FBI allows Jackie Brown, a friend of Vicky's who has been at the roadblock since the beginning, to go up and help Bo with negotiations. Randy and the girls immediately allow Jackie in. She is the first person inside the cabin since she had visited Vicky a few days before the standoff.
It wasn't a happy place anymore. It had already been proven that if they stuck their head out, they'd be shot. There's no doubt about that at that point. They believed they were going to die there, sure.
Not yet ready to give up their fight, the Weavers give Jackie a list of supplies they need and the note they had written a few days before.
That was the biggest and most important thing to us, to me anyway. Even if they killed us after that, our side of the story got out. Because at that point, I still don't think we were going to get out alive.
On day 10, Bo returns to the cabin with one objective, to get Kevin Harris out. In the days since the shooting, Kevin's wound had become badly infected and had put him close to death.
I said, "Weaver, if I have anything to do with this, if I can testify before the jury," I said, if I were on the jury, you'd fry if you let that boy die in here.
At 1:47 p.m., Kevin Harris finally surrenders. His wounds are immediately treated at a field medical tent before being flown directly to a Spokane hospital.
I
excruciating.
On that same day, Jackie returns with the donated food and supplies. She and Bo take care of the next order of business, removing Vicky's body.
But I picked her up right here, and so as I walked to carry her out, gosh, they just were wailing. I've never heard such, and I've been around people that have endured, families that endured death too much. They were just wailing and crying, and they were saying the same thing. Bo, please, please don't let our mama's body touch the ground.
Dick Rogers was standing there with a group of FBI agents, and I simply stated I needed something to clean with. They had shut the water off, and they handed me 2 5-gallon buckets of water and towels and paper towels, and I went back in the cabin and cleaned.
Jackie Brown is allowed to clean the kitchen, unwittingly destroying evidence that could potentially damage the FBI.
Anytime that a crime scene is disturbed, there's evidence that's lost. And when Vicki Weaver's blood was cleaned up, there had to be some loss of evidence.
But it was just something that had to be done.
That night, even with all the progress being made, the HRT begins to show signs that they are getting restless.
Dick Rogers told me, if you cannot get them out by noon, we are taking them out.
You know, we've already done so many incredibly stupid things. It's just one more incredibly stupid thing.
On the morning of the 11th day, no one in the vigil knew the pressure that Bo was under to get Randy and the girls out safely.
Randy said, "Bo, is that you?" And I said, "Yes, it is, Weaver." And then he said what I knew he was going to say. He said, "We have prayed all night, Bo, the girls and I." He said, "We have decided that they are going to have to kill us, just like they killed our mama and our little brother."
Bo Greitz has no more time to appease the family. He has to get the Weavers out, right then and there.
He said, "Weaver, tonight's the night. They're coming after you. If you don't come out, you got to come out now or you're going to be dead and all this." And by this time I had a feeling that maybe we could come out without getting shot. And so I said, "This is it, girls. We got to go now." You know, and so we did.
I had Randy Weaver with an iron grip, and I looked over and Randy had Elishaba, and by God, we walked down that hill. And his little girls, I think, while they were terrified, I think they honestly began to think that maybe they wouldn't be shot down. And God, that's what you're supposed to think in America, for crying out loud.
2 words it seems that all of us have been waiting to hear. It's over. An 11-day standoff that took 3 lives has now ended with the surrender of Randy Weaver.
Randy is taken into custody and immediately flown by helicopter to medical attention before being taken to jail in Boise by private jet. It is the first time he's ever flown.
Randy, you got anything you want to say?
Both Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris are charged with murder and conspiracy. After a 3-month trial, Kevin Harris is found not guilty on all charges and released a free man. Randy is found not guilty of all but the original failure to appear charge, for which he serves an additional 6 months in jail.
If I could, you know, do over and then I could read the guy's mind, I wouldn't have sold him those guns. But as far as anything else concerned, no, I'd do it again.
In 1994, the Weaver family files a civil suit, and 1 year later, the federal government settles for $3.1 million.
Nobody came out of Ruby Ridge looking good. I think to a sense, everybody there was a victim.
We fouled up in front of the entire world, and it should never have happened. And I think it was just a really disappointing day for the FBI.
The FBI later admits to covering up facts during the court case, and the rules of engagement are deemed unconstitutional.